So
So Syria, I mean, it's been going on for so long now that I feel like it's very easy for it to be considered history more than it's considered something that's an ongoing conflict. Like people just are like, well, that was years ago. Wait, that's still going on? I mean, it's like the same with like conflict in the Congo, and like there are a lot of places where it's like if the conflict goes on long enough, people get fatigued by like even hearing about it, and
although
like
that's although the African conflicts, those inspire instant fatigue because no one really cares about Africa. I'll give that, like, that's a real problem. But
oh yeah,
um
yeah,
yeah, so
I won't argue with you on that one, but but yeah, so let's dive into this a little bit.
so in terms of like let's say where Syria stands right now, maybe like that would be a good starting point. um
Yeah, because I mean, since American troops basically mostly pulled out, um, the landscape has changed. The opposition doesn't really they don't pose enough of a threat to actually taking over the country anymore. They're not in any way positioned to winning, and now we have a lot of countries playing chess in Syria as part of like a global geopolitical power struggle.
so with we could go through the big players. The United States actually hasn't pulled out very many troops. Like it's pulled out a few. Trump at one point was saying that he was going to pull out entirely, but then he got a bunch of pushback. And it was similar, kind of similar to what we were talking about with the Afghan episode, right? Sort of similar players who were involved who are like, no, we can't desert the Kurds, and these are our people, and et cetera, et cetera. And
Yeah,
just so happens there's a lot of oil. All of Syria's oil is located, not all, but a lot is located in the Kurdish northeastern areas, which, by the way, isn't just Kurdish, it's mixed Arab and Kurdish.
yeah,
A lot of what the misinformation is that it's majority Kurdish, when it's in fact no actual demographic study had been done by the Syrian government. So we don't really know who makes up the majority, except that that area is extremely diverse. So the Americans are still there. They are protecting the Kurds. And when I say the Kurds, also, we're talking about a group, a political group, the YPD, which has ties to the PKK, right? Which is also obviously an
yeah. I
outlawed,
mean,
like, terrorist Kurdish group that's on like terrorist lists.
yeah. I
But
mean, both of those are for those who don't know, both of those are Kurdish separatist groups, nationalist groups that want to create a Kurdish state. Um, the Kurds have never had a separate state based on their nationality. We can, getting into an argument about about nationalism and ethnic based state, um, you know, building is a whole argument that a
yeah,
conversation
that's a
that
whole episode.
we don't have room for that here. I would
Yeah, yeah.
say, I think in a lot of ways the Americans are not protecting the Kurds as much as they were. Um, the issue with Kurdish nationalist groups is that it goes across a number of different countries, and so it's southern Turkey, it's northern Iraq, it's northern Syria, and they would like to like carve off a place to these groups would like to carve off a place and make an independent Kurdish state. but there, there's been a lot of stops and starts with that movement, even within the Kurdish world.
Right.
So
You have a lot of Kurds who aren't for an independent Kurdistan. You have a lot of Kurds who are Islamists. You have a lot of communist Kurds. You have Kurds who are
yeah,
loyal
PKK
to
is pretty Marxist, I think, is it not?
they're Marxists. Yeah. The you have Kurds who are loyal to the Assad regime. You like the Kurds are not a monolith like that.
Yeah.
They're a diverse group. It's just that when people refer to the Kurds now, everyone just thinks of in Syria the YPG, the political party that's running the northeast, they're administering the northeast with American backing, and the PYG, which is the military arm of the YPD. So yeah, you know they still do get a lot of support from the US. Like they would not be where they're at today without American support.
I
And
think though, I
so
mean, I think the Western world likes to look at the Kurds as like friendly pseudo Arabs.
right, they're the equivalent of they're very close with those Kurds. I'm saying the
Uh-huh.
ones who are part of that American project are actually very close to Israel, and so they have close ties with the Israelis as well as the Kurds in northern Iraq. So the idea is, and this is something that we could talk about in other episodes too, but there is this general theme whereby Arab nationalism over the period of decades, many decades, had pretty much isolated a lot of ethnic minorities. And these minorities, ethnic and, well, yeah, ethnic minorities, a lot of those people were sort of screwed over because of the policies of, let's say, Ba'athist Syria or Ba'athist Iraq or Nasserist Egypt.
Well, I
Although
mean,
I don't know.
that is the story of the 20th century is
Right. But the,
is people breaking off into ethnic and religious groups and wanting to build states based on ethnic and religious identity. I know.
yeah,
I mean, it goes even further than that. Actually, it goes further back in history to the 1830s, and Greek separatism from the Ottoman Empire, and
right, right.
you know all
But
through
with
that.
The Kurds though, they like you said, never got a state. When the French and the British were in the area, so they promised them a state, they never got one, and then they were mistreated by the different countries in which they were living in because they didn't fit the ethnic nationalist narratives that those countries pushed. Uh, anyways, the Kurds, that's their situation. They control a lot of Syria's oil, they control a lot of Syria's agricultural land. So the idea is that they want to be in a position where, with American support, they can carve out at least an autonomous region within Syria, so that one day Syria, they would want to be a federalist state. So a federal state, and they could basically do their own thing, kind of like what the Kurds in northern Iraq did. So that's what they're up to. Then you have the the groups in northwestern Syria that were considered opposition and are still considered opposed to Bashar al-Assad's regime, but are backed by Turkey. So those guys are primarily in the Idlib province, or on the border. So Turkey actually carved out some territory and kicked out a bunch of Kurds from those lands so that they wouldn't pose a threat to Turkish, I guess, national security. The Kurds and the Turks obviously have a lot of bad blood and a bad history there. So So yeah, what happens in Syria obviously pertains a lot to what happened to Turkey when it comes to the Kurdish issue. They don't want to see a Kurdish state, right? Obviously. So the Turks are very much set in the north, with the militias that they back, who are Sunni militias. And then in the rest of the country, it's pretty much the regime. You still have pockets of ISIS in some parts. Like ISIS just pops up here and there. It isn't completely gone in Syria or in Iraq. We can talk about that a little later. But so
Mm.
yeah, pretty much those are the main groups in Syria now, backed of course by different countries. Um, the regime obviously being backed by Russia and Iran.